Hello, everybody. I'm here to introduce and welcome you to the Department of Speech-Language Pathology at the University of Toronto. My name is Yana Yunusova, Dr. Yana Yunusova, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Speech-Language Pathology. I also conduct research in the area of motor speech disorders and have labs at Toronto Rehab and Sunnybrook Research Institute, as many of the faculty that teach in our department. I have quite a large number of slides to go through. I will be going through them rather quickly. In the recorded mode, you can always pause and read some of the slides in more detail. Very briefly about the Department of Speech-Language Pathology. It was established in late 60s, and at this point is offering two programs. One is a clinical research program or a Master's of Health Science, and also we offer a research program which is an MSc/PhD program. So depending on which of the programs you're interested in, you should direct your questions actually indicating the nature of the program. So very briefly, most of my presentation will be about our clinical program because we do admit quite a large number of people each year, about 50 people. We admit to study clinical speech-language pathology. And so I'll briefly review to you what speech pathology is and why it would be fantastic to study that field at the University of Toronto. So speech-language pathology requires a master's degree, so obviously the professionals educated in our program or across Canada for that matter are highly educated and are in school for many years, and education offers a fantastic opportunity to be an SLP, which is a very diverse and very interesting and creative field. Because individuals study all different kinds of science-based disciplines from physiology, genetics, behavioral psychology, but also speech science, also child language development, and so forth. And after graduating from our program, SLPs can work in a variety of settings, from hospitals to schools to rehabilitation science centers to private practice, universities, and research facilities. The current average salary range for SLP graduates is in Ontario between $64,000 to $85,000. So you're not going to get extremely rich doing speech-language pathology, but you're also not going to be terribly poor. So it's a really good degree to have from practical perspective. So clinical training, as I told you, it's a 2-year master's program in our department. Actually, to be specific, it takes 22 months to graduate. And what we are known for in Canada and in Ontario is the unique organization of our program. So it's our hallmark is a separation between academic units and clinical units. So the way the program is structured is that, I will show you here on this diagram, is that beginning from September admission, the first semester is spent on campus here at U of T, doing some academic prep work, followed by 2 more months of academic prep work. In March, students go into 2 months of their first clinical practicum and actually practice in areas that they study in the first 6 months of the program. So this way, we separate academic requirements from clinical requirements, yet we tie them completely together into a very cohesive academic curriculum. So after the first unit is finished in March and April, students come back for 2 months of academic experience on campus again, and then they go back to the community to experience a clinical setting again, and so forth until the end of their program. Our students very much enjoy this kind of structure because it just more sensible and probably easier to follow. Let's see what I have missed so far. At the end of the program, we offer a very comprehensive capstone exercise that's based on assessing the student life over the 2 years in the program and summarizing it in a very interesting, actually creative electronic format. So this slide describes what sets us apart from our other master's programs in Ontario and Canada. Obviously, we are at the top-ranked institution in Canada, and our department likewise is a leader in professional education in Canada and also ranks very well in North America in general. Again, I mentioned our very innovative and integrated curriculum with a lot of hands-on experiences across different clinical settings in Toronto. The beauty of being actually in Toronto is access to the university health network of hospitals and clinics, rehabilitation centers, as well as a very large-sized school district that offers our students clinical opportunities. We pay particular attention to interprofessional education at the University of Toronto in general, in our department specifically. Our interprofessional activities involve usually medical students as well as other students in rehabilitation sciences that work together with future speech-language pathologists on very creative interprofessional activities. And we always emphasize that our curriculum is unique and really aims at a complete integrative experience for our students in the program. So again, our program, our clinical program is full-time, 2-year length program. We do not offer part-time curriculum. We only admit students in the beginning of the year, in September, beginning of academic year, that is. We have our application deadline is on January 9th, and usually it's whatever date in January with the admission the following September. The applications are submitted through the Ontario Rehabilitation Sciences Program application service or PASS website. Every year we enroll 50 students, and we receive about 350 applications each year, so the process is rather competitive, as you can imagine. Our requirements are, the main requirement is to have a 4-year undergraduate degree or equivalent, not necessarily an honors degree, but 4-year undergraduate degree in arts and sciences. The minimum grade is mid-B standing in the final year. We do not specify a field of study as a criterion. However, 75% of coursework must be in arts and sciences. And it is very important because the majority of the academic curriculum that we offer is very much science-based, and students need to be prepared to take on very complex coursework. It's very important to identify when you write your cover letter all the awards and scholarships that are associated with your undergraduate academic degree. So we receive all our academic information through the ORPAS system, and it is ORPAS that calculates student GPA and ranks each file for our assessment. The sub-GPA that we are particularly concerned are based on 10 full credits or 20 half credits, or basically approximately 2 last years of undergraduate degree. The GPA is calculated based only on the undergraduate courses completed by December prior to your January application deadline. Grades obtained in graduate degrees, like for example, if you went and did a Master's of Linguistics after finishing an undergraduate degree, those grades do not count towards calculation of your GPA. Yet, in reviewing your application, we do acknowledge the fact that some of our applicants do come in with master's degrees in non-clinical fields. We require a certain number of prerequisites, and the list is given here. Usually there are courses in child language development, some linguistic courses, statistics and methods courses, and physiology. There is on our website a list of potential courses that could be counted as a prerequisite. Other admissions requirements include academic letters of reference and a single clinical letter of reference. These letters are extremely important, and what's really important is that academic letters need to be written by preferably full-time academic faculty in your undergraduate institution. Professors who know you well, who know you preferably through more than just taking a single course, those you have research experiences with, those who can comment on your academic performance in significant amount of detail. Your clinical letter is also extremely important because we ask clinicians to assess your suitability to the field of speech-language pathology, and their reference really tells us if you do have the intellectual capacity, personality to be in speech-language pathology field. The letter must be written by a certified speech-language pathologist who supervised you during hands-on clinical experience. We also require you to write a one-page letter of intent. The nature of the letter is very important, so you better spend significant amount of time thinking about what it is that you want to put in that letter and how to show your file in the best possible way. Other admission requirements include minimum of 14 hours of volunteer experience in speech-language pathology setting. Of course, we say that the requirement is 14 hours, but the majority of our students come in with at least 50 hours of volunteer experience. We do like the experience to be across different speech pathology settings, for example, with children and with adults, and sometimes it would even be more preferable to have let's say, experience with children across two different settings. This is really important because SLP field is extremely diverse, and we want to make sure that before you enter the program, you really know what you're getting into. So the ideal experience, again, is the variety of settings, variety of age groups, variety of disorders, and direct interactions with patients. So there are many different volunteer opportunities, and I will not cover them in detail, but you can pause and look at what this slide says in terms of what's available. So how to apply to our department? Again, I already said that there is an ORPAS website that will walk you step by step through the application process. Choose speech-language pathology and University of Toronto when you complete your applications. It is a relatively costly process, so it's still, we recommend that you apply to more than one program because the admission is so competitive. So this is some contact information for our department and our mailing address of the ORPAS application center. We want to emphasize that you need to know your financial needs and the fact that the clinical master's program is a professional program, and therefore we do not offer financial support to students who apply into that professional program. It costs about $23,000 on average to go to school and live in Toronto, and you really need to realistically estimate your living expenses when coming to school and living in Toronto. There may be, as part of our program, some costs associated with clinical placements, and it would be good for you to budget some of these expenses. There are small number of scholarships and bursaries that are offered in the province and nationally for students in professional programs, but remember that these kinds of opportunities are very, very limited. So the basic few words of wisdom is to plan ahead, to start your planning early. For example, right now, we already finished our admissions process for the upcoming 2015 fall class. And so now, if you're listening this webinar, I'm assuming you're preparing for 2016 application. This is perfect timing to start thinking about what's needed to develop your academic plan, to develop your financial plan, and start to explore funding resources. There are information available on the SGS website at the University of Toronto, which we suggest you go to think about these potential funding options. So we also suggest a few useful links through our student handbook, which you can find on the departmental website. We also offer about once a month, we offer information sessions in-house at the Department of Speech Language Pathology at the Rehabilitation Science Building, where you can sign in or come in on a drop-in basis and talk to us in person. And here is the contact information for our departmental student secretary, who can give you additional insights in the application process, prerequisites, and such. So now I'm going to say a few words about our clinical about our research MSc/PhD degree that we offer in the Department of Speech Language Pathology. I hope some of you out there are really interested in the research career in our field. It's a very interesting field because of its diversity. So the faculty in our department are leaders in research across multiple areas. For example, we have faculty that specialize in child language development and disorders, oral rehabilitation, adult language disorders. By those I mean typically language or neurocognitive disorders in adults. Motor speech disorders. We also have faculty that are specializing in swallowing disorders, stuttering and fluency, and voice and resonance disorders. And all of these faculty have research labs either at the department or across different hospital sites in Toronto, working with various clinical populations. The main thing to understand about applying and being interested in research degrees is that the first step to it is locating your research supervisor. So if you're interested, and typically at this point, those of you who are interested already identified the research field within the field of speech pathology that you may be passionate about. For example, motor speech disorders or stuttering. You find faculty who do research in the area that you're passionate about, and you send them basically an email asking if they're looking for graduate students in this term or in the next year or in the next couple of years. And you have a conversation basically with the faculty that you're interested in working with, and they will give you details about what the lab is like and what their expectations are like and if funding is available. And after that's done, the application process goes through School of Graduate Studies, where all the documents get submitted. Prior to the official application, the faculty probably will ask you to send them your transcripts to review, as well as your CV with the publications and presentations that you might have at this point in time, and also samples of your writing. Typically what happens next is you have face-to-face meetings. Some of the students who join later my lab's work or join the lab as volunteers or research assistants for a short period of time to see if they're suitable to the lab, if they actually like the kind of work that the lab is doing, and then prior to the official application. Research stream students in our department are eligible for guaranteed funding in the amount of $15,000 plus tuition for 4 years full-time study. So that's why it's very important that you contact your potential supervisor, because a lot of decision is based on funding availability. In terms of required application materials, they're pretty standard. They would include a statement of intent, your CV or resume, as well as examples of writing, which may include your thesis work, your published or unpublished manuscripts, your class papers that you wrote independently. You will need 3 letters of recommendation from academic faculty. Your university transcripts should show B+ average in the final year of study, at least, that is, and also evidence of previous research experience equivalent to a master's thesis if you're applying for a PhD program. Also, it's always helpful to say that you have thought about financial support and you have maybe been awarded some financial support or at least applied for. So the application deadline is February 1st, 2016. We now have September admissions only deadline. We don't have a part-time program, so again, it's only a full-time program. And applications are submitted through the School of Graduate Studies. So now, am I still doing well on time?
5 minutes and then the question period will start.
Right. So in the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to show you a few examples of the kind of research that are conducted in the Department of Speech-Language Pathology. So, for example, we have a child language lab under the direction of Dr. Luigi Girolametto, and his area of expertise is second language learning patterns in bilingual children and emergent literacy, emergent narrative structure, knowledge of print, phonological awareness, that sort of thing. We also have a childhood hearing loss lab in which students study, for example, a role of culture in parent-child communicative interactions for children with hearing loss, and also the focus of this lab on Canadian Aboriginal children. We have a language and cognitive development lab directed by Dr. Elena Manila-Arnold, and her lab is looking at cognitive mechanisms that are involved in the process of language development. We have a language sciences lab under the direction of Dr. Elizabeth Rochon, and her primary area of expertise is aphasia or language disorder due to some neurologic event, for example, a stroke, and as well as cognitive language interactions in the language system. We also have an oral dynamics lab directed by Pascal van Lieshout, and his lab studies oral motor control processes in speech production. My lab is called Speech Production Lab, study primarily neurodegenerative diseases and their effect on speech production, including amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, and stroke. My lab develops novel techniques for the assessment and also treatment of motor speech disorders. We also have a swallowing lab directed by Rosemary Martino, whose research interest is in the investigation of swallowing impairments or dysphagia and impact of this condition on patients. She develops also novel assessment methods and treatment techniques to assist patients and clinicians who work with patients with dysphagia. We have Speech Fluency Lab directed by Luc Daniel, and he really is focusing his work on understanding neural correlates of stuttering. His research program is focused on brain imaging, cortical and subcortical, looking at cortical and subcortical structures, how they support fluent speech production. Voice and Resonance Lab is directed by Tim Bressman, and he is interested in resonance and articulation disorders in patients with cleft palate in various craniofacial syndromes. He looks at the effect of glossectomy, or basically tongue resection, on speech production. Our status faculty is Katrina Steele, who's also interested in research in dysphagia and looks at pathophysiology of swallowing disorders. We have information sessions. Usually they're joined between clinical program and the research program, and our next information session is on April 22nd, 2015. Basically, I think it's next week. From what I remember, I'll be presenting similar information about our department at that session if you want to be there in person. More information you can find at our website. It actually is a very well-developed website that describes both really well our clinical program and our research program, and I recommend before sending emails with inquiries, do read the documents that we provide for potential students and learn about our program from there.
Okay, so we have one question from online. Melissa asks that she would like to see the slide with the volunteering position information again. And she also wants to know where else she can get more volunteering information.
Usually, we do not facilitate volunteer experiences for potential students. It's their responsibility to find places in the community, private practices, hospitals, usually actually hospitals and government-based organizations have volunteer departments that have very standardized way of recruiting volunteers, and I would recommend you contact these institutions to set up volunteer experiences.
Another question is about the MHSc internship placements. Are the students expected to find positions themselves, or does the department help?
That's a fantastic question. No, the department facilitates placements. We, because of our location in Toronto, we do have a significant pool of potential options, and we do match students with placements. And we do even more. Usually students choose out of the list of potential positions, and very often they're able to go to placements that are their top first or second choice in the matching list.
The next question we have is for the research stream. What would be the ideal time to contact a supervisor if you're interested in being part of their lab?
Right now would be really ideal time. Even more ideal time would be about a year prior your application, because it's very important for faculty to be able to plan ahead different activities. For example, potential grant applications. There's quite a number of grant applications for student supports that come out to different funding agencies in spring and summer. So it would be fantastic if an incoming student in September already have some applications, under their belt prior to admission. So the sooner, the better, basically.
How many people get accepted to the research stream master's and the PhD per year?
It really depends on each year. Depends on who is applying and how many. So usually 3 to 5 people on average. It's a relatively small number compared to how many get accepted to our clinical program.
Program is how
50
many years?
people.
How many years has that been going on? Is it new or is it?
Our clinical program has been around since late 60s. So we've been around for a while. We used to admit relatively small number of people, about 20, and now we're admitting 50 people. In the research stream, it really depends on the number of qualified applicants, because every individual is handpicked and matched to a faculty member, which is a pretty complicated and very individualized program, process, so to speak. And so the numbers, of course, are smaller. Okay, so I think that was our last question. Thank you very much for your attention. And please get more information about our department on our website. And thank you.